Guess where we are? We're in the redwood forest of California. It's like my favorite place in the whole world. And my niece is here with me, Shelby. I'll show you a picture of Shelby. And she's taken this video so that you could see the redwoods and we could read one of the stories together from Bible Stories Rock. You want to hear a story? All right, well, I'm sitting inside of a big, giant redwood tree. This tree could be 2,000 or even 3,000 years old. Do you know that means that this tree could have been here when this story happened? Can you believe that? That's amazing. So we're doing the Old Testament story called the Passover. And this is one of the most unusual stories in the Old Testament. So you might need to listen to it a couple times to really understand what happened. But basically, the Israelites, all those people, a whole nation of people, became slaves to the Egyptians. And the Egyptians were really mean to them, and they needed to get out of there because God wanted them to be able to worship and pray and serve and be free, but they weren't free. So what were they going to do because they were stuck? Well, we're going to learn in this story, but it's kind of a scary story. You might, with your parents or your Sunday school teacher or a friend, read the whole thing in the Bible, because 10 terrible things happened. There were frogs everywhere, and then there were flies everywhere, and then the ocean turned to blood. It was really awful. And why did those terrible things happen? It was because Pharaoh, like the king of Egypt, he wouldn't let the Israelites go. And God kept giving him chances to let the Israelites go and telling him, look, let them go or bad things are going to happen. And Pharaoh said, no, I'm not going to let them go. Well, then the bad things happened. It's probably a good idea to listen to God when he says something. So here's the story. Slaves. For 430 years, the people of the Israelite nation were enslaved by the Egyptians. The Israelites could not fully worship God and were trapped. But God had a plan to save them all. He prepared Moses to be his prophet leader and gave him power to convince Pharaoh to let the Israelites go. Well, Pharaoh was prideful and dishonest. He refused to listen to God. He was given 10 chances to change his heart and obey God. He could have stopped the 10 terrible plagues or disasters from happening by simply humbling himself before God and obeying him. But he chose to ignore God, causing great suffering for all the Egyptians. The 10th plague was the worst of all. Moses warned Pharaoh that all the firstborn sons in Egypt would die if Pharaoh would not free the Israelite people. But for the 10th time, you guessed it, Pharaoh refused. God said the destroying angel would pass over or leave unharmed any family who painted the blood of a lamb on the doorpost, on the top and on the sides. This was to remind them of the blood of Jesus Christ, which would be spilled to save everyone who would follow him. That night, all the oldest sons of Egypt died, including Pharaoh's own son, because he wouldn't follow God's instructions. But none of the oldest sons of Israel died because they did what God told them to do. Finally, Pharaoh agreed to let the Israelites go. And this big event that I just explained is called the Passover. The destroying angel passed over the Israelites and all of those who listened to God. And it's still commemorated every year. So now when you look at this unusual picture and you see this angel flying through the sky with a sword, you'll know that he's the destroying angel, headed to Egypt and all the people that wouldn't listen to God. And here is a little family having Passover dinner, and on their front doorpost you'll see the blood that they painted so that the destroying angel would know they followed God's instructions and he passed over them. And that's the Passover story. Well, thanks for listening. Should we do another one in nature somewhere? Maybe we'll find the ocean or another place in the redwoods. Until then, bye. this fallen log here. This is a fallen tree right here. That tree fell a long time ago. And then a seed fell on top of it and it grew into a tree. And that huge tree right there wrapped its roots around this log. And then look at how these roots grew down to find soil to get nourishment. And some of those roots even went all along this fallen tree. Look at that. Incredible. That's so cool. Wow, looks like an octopus. And on this fallen log, there's a whole community living on top of that. All those ferns and different plants up there. Wow. The rainforest is full of all kinds of caves, clues and mysteries. This is a fallen tree right here, all along the right side. It has so many things living on it. But it feels like a wall. The tree is so big. Check it out. That was a heart tree on the top.